So last time we worked on the designing of the eye, and the biggest faults I've seen with people so far is not curving the outside. You got to make sure that the outside starts to curve down, and not maybe necessarily as close to the center, to the side of the nose as what it could be. So I never did mine on my carving, so this is what we'll do. We'll do one. And so typically I mark that side first and then try and match the level going on the other side. So I've got them pretty much in the same spot. The outside of the eye is going to be a little bit lower on both sides. So again, try and match the width and the shape. And again, that's pretty darn close. I have to turn it so I can measure the TP on the top. So there's the 3-dot system, and you can see it on both sides. So then it's just a question of joining them together. When I'm doing an eye anymore, I don't even do this mark, I just carve it. So it's straight on the top, and then turn it upside down, and that gives you that nice curve that you need on the bottom. Something like that. Bit hard to see on that. So then I use my little knife, and once again I'm going to just go ahead and I'll carve one of these. Don't come all the way across. Create the triangles on all 3 triangles, and then turn it and go back and make them match. So then you just have to take the knife and just a slight little notch out on all the triangles. And round it off wherever you need to. Use your wife's toothbrush. And then I extend the side. Take that little chip out of there. Now I'm going to use a V-tool, and I'm going to create the top eyelid. So I'm going to start out a ways, come up, turn, and follow the general shape of the eye that I've carved. That's the top one, and the bottom one is very narrow. Let's see if I can get a closer up. A little bit difficult to see, but gives you the idea. The important part here is to not go too deep in the corners so that you don't create a buggy look. Create this slit coming off the side here. That makes the top eyelid look like it comes over the bottom one, and whatever shape you want for the top eyelid over here, and a little bit of a carved bottom eyelid. Eventually on this fella here, I'll likely bring it in and narrow him down here somewhat. Skinny face for a skinny guy. Okay, so to shape the nose a little bit, I'm going to give a couple of scoops. I'm going to come in just below where we keep that round section on the tip of the nose, and I'm going to scoop it out, take that little chip out, and then I'm going to do it again up towards the bridge of the nose. And it's tough to see. I'll bring it around. Okay, so we worked a little bit on the nose. Now we're going to start working our way back. And if you notice, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to put in sideburns, you can see that there's sideburns on this fellow. So you can leave a little bit of material as you work your way back. So you do that by taking off some of the material on the side of the face and leaving it out. So you would mark it on where you wanted to leave the material, and you can give them whatever shape, even the hair. If you wanted to have hair come down and then sideburns, then you could do that. So it's kind of your call how much hair you want to leave there. When I did the original one, I don't think I did any. No, I didn't put any on, and it still looks okay. I just did a little bit at the very top here. So it depends on how much hair you want to leave with this guy. And then the next step after that is going to be his ear, and that's where this block here that we left here, that's where that fits in. And we'll work that in very shortly. So the first thing is to decide whether you want to leave a little bit of sideburn. If you're going to leave a little bit of sideburn, then you mark it out and then take a little bit of material off the front in order to make it sit out proud. Okay? So you can see that the ear hangs down. The top of his ear is actually going to be into or under the hat. You could, I guess, even have hair come down over top of it if you wanted, but it does stick out. And just keep in mind that the older the guy, usually the longer the ear comes down. Typically the bottom of the ear lines up with the bottom of the nose. The top of the ear, if they didn't have a hat on, would line up with the brow. Okay, so that's just a general observation or a general consideration. Now I used my storyboard that we worked on last week, and I've just carved out a little bit of the material on the side, and so I'm going to mark off those parameters, the top and the bottom, on that. Okay, and then I'm going to establish a width of an ear, and there's the back of the ear, and the front of the ear is more or less already there. Now you could make this wider if you want to make it wider. Keep in mind that we got a skinny guy, and every feature on his face, if you make it long and thin, adds to the idea that the guy is long and thin. So you make your little triangle on there, and let me erase that one mark there so it doesn't confuse you. Alright, so there's your rectangle sitting in there. So don't keep it sharp corners and all of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a block. We're going to remove the wood all the way around the outside and create that block. And I just use a V-tool to do that. So very simply, come in and you won't have the top. Well, that's why I asked you if you had still had your practice board with you, because you could practice this ahead of time. But if you don't have it, you're going to have to visualize it and do it. Okay, so once you get the square, now I'll go right ahead. So the back of the ear is established by a distance halfway between on the back, put a mark, halfway on the bottom, put a mark. So then join those two lines together, and then all we're gonna do is we're gonna knock off the corners. And if you take a look at that, there is an ear. It's as simple as that. We tend to make things too complicated. So then it's just a question of coming along and putting a knife cut in there and removing those corners. Alright, I'll stop it there. Okay, let's go on now. We've got the outside shape of the ear established. Now we have to start paring off some wood. So this section here, the ear has to come down so it's level with the side of the face here. So in order to do that, we got to remove some wood in here. And you can use a gouge, or I often will use a knife, so I just start taking little bits and pieces out of there. just to get the shape started. So I've got that notch out of there now, and you can see it goes right down to the side of the face. And then I take a gouge, and this happens to be 5mm number 7, and I come in from the side of now that I've created that bit of a hollow, and I'm just going to par out some of that wood. But make sure you leave the lobe on the bottom here. So we're trying to create the angle that comes down from the very top here, comes down on an angle so that we can get the bottom or the inside of the ear established. So it looks something like that. So we've hollowed out all that material, but we've left all the outside of the ear. I'll get you to do one more thing and then we'll let you get caught up here. So from that halfway point, we got the lobe is narrower, so I'm going to take a little bit of the material off. So then you can see that the bottom of the ear, the lobe part of the ear, has been removed. Okay? So it looks roughly like that. If you have to deepen it around, you can. And don't be afraid that if this is rounded on the bottom here, that's fine too. Every ear is a little bit different. So I'm going to use that same gouge that I used to hollow it out. Now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to jab it straight in, and that's going to let them hear. We're going to create that flap. You see how that creates that flap in there? So then just take a little bit of the material out using that same gouge. If you just kind of roll your gouge around using that as a stop cut in there, that material comes out, and there you are. He can hear now. He's got the hole in his ear in order to hear. While you're away at coffee, I was working on my guy here, and very quickly realized that you're going to have to start to shape the side of his body here, and where the shoulder joins onto the body. You should be able to put your thumb in there, or a finger, and create that shape, the shape of your thumb. So it's kind of a hollowed out situation in here. Start to shape this body, has to start to shape back in here. Yeah, he's got clothing on. He's going to have a collar that's going to have to go in there, but that's only a surface feature. It's not a deep feature, so we're going to have to start rounding that. What that does is it gives you more room then to address the bottom part of the ear. Okay, so you can see that ear is more or less set, and I'm going to have my ear kind of disappear into the hat, but I notice some of you have it turned out, and as if the ear is being forced down by the hat and becomes the cauliflower ear. So going back to our practice block, so now I'm going to show you how to create the inside of the ear, and I'm going to use a number 11 3mm gouge. That's a high-sided gouge, so if you can kind of visualize that. So all I'm going to do then is I'm going to work my way around the outside of this ear, and I'm going to stay in from the outside of the ear quite a ways actually. And so if that chip came out, it's not supposed to happen that way. So you can see by just starting to hollow that, can you see the features that are starting to create? And I'll have to turn that upside down in order to work on it. So now I'm going to bring that cut that I've started here for the back side of the ear, I'm going to bring it right down into that stop cut I created in there, and likewise I'm going to come down and bring it in on the bottom just above the lobe, and one more cut just to create that little extra feature in the ear. And now if I can get it a little bit closer. There. So can you see how that creates that feature in there? You can clean that out a little bit better. Once you put it in the magnifying there, you can see that it's okay. So then it's just a question of I take a knife and round off everything, and so that'll get rid of all my marks that I've got on there. Take the edges off. This has to come down, and you can create whatever shape you want for the top of the ear. But take the edges off. Tom, you're going to have to edit this because I've got this running quite a long time. So there's an ear. And that's a satisfactory ear. You can, again, shape it however you want. You want to have the lobe knocked down a little bit more. Take a round gouge and maybe come across it, and maybe come across it like this in order to give it more of a flatter part on the globe. You can mess around with an ear and do an awful lot different stuff with it. See how that flattens it off? And the globe can be narrowed down quite a bit if you want. It's whatever shape you want to create in here. Sorry?
What did you do to get that?
That hole there?
Yeah.
I used that same gouge that I hollowed out this way on. I used it to go down, and I just put a stop cut in. I just pushed it in. So as you can see on the body here, if you take a look at the angle in here, you can see that the shoulders are back quite a ways in respect to the chest. So we've got all that material in there to remove. So all this material in on both sides here we have to get rid of. So we got big lumps on here. So what I'm going to use is this big number 5, 20 millimeter wide, and that creates the perfect shape. You want to be able to put your thumb in there to create that shape in there. So by putting it down, and I'm going to try and do this on the camera. So I'm going to start to shape that, and don't try and take his ear off or anything like that, but we're going to start to round over the body here on the front. And I'm just cutting in straight back on the neck. So now I can put my thumb in there. See how I can put my thumb right in there? And that creates that shape. So I've rounded it off from the flat on the front center line all the way back to the top of the shoulder. So what does that do? That creates the body, but it also creates the neck. We can create that shape in the neck now. Okay.